Resilience is misunderstood because it's framed as a personality trait instead of a system. Companies talk about it constantly. Executives praise it, HR posts about it, seminars preach it. But most people don't understand what resilience actually protects you from. They don't understand how effort breaks down under prolonged stress, how motivation collapses when rewards disappear, how discipline depletes quietly, and how people don't fail dramatically, they fade out slowly. When most people hear resilience, they think it just means not collapsing. The business is still alive, the employee is still breathing, so success. But if you've ever felt like you were doing everything right and still going nowhere, effort without payoff, pressure without recognition, resilience isn't about surviving that. It's about staying functional long enough for conditions to change. That's what this is actually about. I spent the entire year showing up consistently, improving the work, and still watching progress stall at times. There were moments where I was practically the only one watching. That gap between effort and visible payoff is exactly where resilience is tested. Later in this talk, I'm going to share the 5 pillars of resilience. These are practical principles you can use to stay functional under prolonged stress. Keep this in mind as we go through what resilience really means and why it matters. Here's where most definitions go wrong. Resilience started in metal and spring, a word that meant to leap back, to recoil after force. And centuries later, humans borrowed it for themselves. Bodies, minds, hearts bending under pressure, snapping back, refusing to break. Not just surviving the weight of the world, but emerging functional, sharper, and alive, carrying the same ancient power that once only described steel. We talk about people as if they either have it or they don't, as if resilience were a moral quality or a genetic blessing. That framing is not just inaccurate, it's damaging. In practice, it causes people to interpret exhaustion as failure, discouragement as weakness, and collapse as a personal flaw, rather than a predictable result of unmanaged pressure. Most people are not defeated by a single event. They are worn down by duration. They can handle stress briefly, but they cannot handle uncertainty indefinitely. The real problem isn't intensity, it's exposure over time without recovery, meaning, or visible progress. So it's the slow grind, not the one dramatic moment, that wears us down. Motivation is fragile. It depends on getting rewards. When effort doesn't seem to pay off, the brain starts holding back energy. Discipline lasts longer, but it draws from a limited mental and emotional pool. Resilience is what keeps you operational when both systems are running low. Repeated setbacks quietly change how your brain experiences effort. Tasks feel heavier, risks feel sharper, delays feel unbearable. Most people quietly check out long before they quit. Resilient people, they keep moving, adjusting, but they don't lose who they are. A resilient system cannot depend on emotion, inspiration, or belief alone. Those systems are too sensitive to feedback. At its core, resilience is the ability to regulate behavior independently of immediate psychological reward. And that regulation rests on 3 layers, each deeper than the rest. The first layer is energy management. This is the most practical level. Most people waste enormous energy reacting emotionally to conditions they can't control. Resilient individuals do the opposite. They reduce friction, simplify decisions, narrow focus, and preserve their capacity for what actually matters. They don't spend energy proving, defending, or reacting. They conserve it for execution. The second layer is expectation management. This is where breakdown usually begins. People expect effort to feel rewarding, progress to be visible, and improvement to be linear. When reality violates those assumptions, frustration spikes and momentum collapses. Resilient people recalibrate early. They assume delays, ambiguity, and uneven returns. And that assumption prevents psychological shock when progress goes quiet and keeps them moving when others stall. The third layer is identity stability. This is the deepest and most dangerous failure point. Under pressure, many people unconsciously revise who they believe they are to match what feels achievable. Their standards lower, values soften, their story changes. But real resilience requires the opposite. Your methods can change without your identity collapsing. That distinction preserves coherence under stress and prevents quiet self-betrayal. But resilience isn't blind persistence. Persistence without feedback isn't resilience, it's denial. Real resilience is adaptive. You test assumptions, adjust strategies, and abandon tactics without abandoning your direction. That ability to change without losing yourself is what keeps systems alive under pressure. And there's a final layer most people miss: compounding capacity. Each period of sustained effort expands your tolerance for uncertainty, delay, complexity. If it's managed correctly, over time, resilient people stop reacting to conditions that destabilize others. When opportunity finally appears, they're not scrambling. They've already been operating under the same pressure for months or years. What looks like sudden competence is usually just accumulated adaptation. Ultimately, resilience isn't about being tough. It's about staying coherent under pressure. It's about managing your internal systems, energy, expectations, identity, so prolonged stress doesn't distort your decisions, erode your standards, or slowly push you into survival mode. Most people don't realize they're breaking down because it doesn't feel dramatic. They just start avoiding harder decisions. They delay execution. They lower their standards quietly. And they tell themselves a different story about who they are so the discomfort makes sense. Real resilience prevents that drift. It keeps you operational when feedback is delayed, recognition is absent, and outcomes are uncertain, which is exactly the environment you're in if you're trying to build something real or make money without shortcuts. This isn't motivation. It's how you keep yourself intact under pressure. If you're under real pressure, building, rebuilding, or trying to turn your effort into results, I work with a very small number of people to stabilize their execution and decision-making when progress is slow and the stakes are real. There's a link in the description below if this is relevant to you. If not, take these principles and apply them, because staying functional long enough is often the real advantage. Thank you for joining me in our talk today about resilience. If you found this useful, please share it with a friend. And like and subscribe, it supports my channel. I'll see you on the next video.